The winter of Reykjavík in 2039 was cruel. The sun barely touched the horizon for a few hours each day, and the wind that rolled in from the sea carried ice in its teeth. I had lived through 66 winters here, but that one, when my granddaughter came to stay, felt colder than all the others combined. I am Ingrid Thorsen. Once I stood on podiums before orchestras of 60 musicians, raising my hand to bring entire symphonies to life. A single nod from me, and strings, brass, and percussion would obey. Yet in my own family, I failed to notice something that now shamed me deeply. My only granddaughter, Freja, had been taught not to use her voice. It was at the dinner table that the truth revealed itself. Freja sat across from me, her hair falling over her small face, a bowl of steaming fish soup in front of her. I tried to spark conversation. "Freja, did you enjoy school this week?" She only nodded, no sound. "Would you like more bread?" I pressed, reaching toward the basket. Again, only a shake of her head, not a word. Her stepmother, Astrid, smiled in that polished way she always did, the same smile she wore on her live streams when preaching about self-control. "She's practicing silent mindfulness, Ingrid. Children need to learn discipline early. Talking less keeps them from becoming spoiled." Her tone was syrupy, but it made my skin crawl. That night, I couldn't sleep. The storm rattled my wooden house by the shore. I rose for tea, and as I passed the guest room where Freja stayed, I heard it, a whisper, fragile as snowflakes landing on glass. She was humming. It was the old lullaby Hiru að gráta hringana, the one I had sung to my son when he was her age. The melody quivered as if each note was afraid of being caught. Then the door burst open. Astrid's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Silence. No one needs such useless noise. Sleep, or tomorrow there will be no breakfast." The humming stopped. I stood in the hallway, frozen, my heart breaking as if I'd just heard a violin string snap mid-performance. In that moment, I understood. My granddaughter's silence wasn't shyness. It was captivity. And if Astrid had stolen her voice, then I, the grandmother who once drew music out of 100 instruments, would teach Freja how to take it back. The days shrank into darkness, as they always do in an Icelandic winter. But inside that house, it wasn't only the sun that was missing, it was Freja's voice. I began to watch closely. At breakfast, she ate porridge without complaint, her spoon moving mechanically. At dinner, she never asked for seconds, even when she was clearly still hungry. Every word had to be granted by Astrid, as though speaking were a privilege to be earned. One evening, Astrid adjusted her camera ring light and announced, "Tonight I'll be streaming about parental discipline. Real-life examples are always best." She beckoned Freja into frame. The child sat stiff, hands folded in her lap, eyes wide with fear. "Tell my viewers," Astrid prompted, "what is the #1 rule in our home?" Freja's lips moved, but no sound came out. Her throat worked like a bird trapped in its cage. Astrid's smile never faltered. "That's right, silence before impulse. Children must learn control." I had to grip the arm of my chair to keep from shouting. Later that night, I found Freja curled up in her room. She looked at me, eyes red, then whispered so softly I nearly missed it. I wanted to sing, but she heard me. Her voice cracked on the word sing. It was the first real word I had heard from her all week. I knelt beside her bed and took her small hands in mine. My fingers, once steady on the conductor's baton, trembled now. "Freja," I said, "music isn't noise, it's breath, it's heartbeat. If someone tells you not to sing, it means they are afraid of what your voice can do." She blinked at me as if trying to believe. The next day, while Astrid locked herself in her office for a Zoom seminar about controlling the mind, I opened the back door. "Come," I whispered. We walked into the snow where the sea crashed faintly against the rocks. I pulled a small recorder from my coat pocket, an old cassette device, the kind orchestras once used for rehearsal notes. "Try," I urged her, "just for me." She hesitated, then let out a shaky tune. The melody was broken at first, like ice cracking on a pond. But slowly, it grew steadier, until the cold air carried something delicate and haunting. I pressed the record button. As the tape spun, I thought, if Astrid insists on turning silence into a lesson, then I will make voice into evidence. Freja's song would not disappear into the snow. I would capture it, and when the time came, the world would hear it. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. The house smelled of coffee and candle wax, the way it always did when Astrid staged her online masterclasses. This time, she had planned something special, an interview with her stepdaughter, broadcast live to her thousands of followers. I knew what it meant, a performance not for Freja but at her expense. Astrid adjusted her hair, perfect under the ring light, and placed Freja on a tall chair beside her. "My audience has been waiting for this," she cooed into the camera. "Discipline isn't just theory, it's lived practice. Today, my daughter will show you how children can thrive under guidance." She turned to Freja, smile sharp as glass. "Tell everyone, darling, what do you love most about having me as your mother?" The chat box on her laptop filled with hearts and laughing emojis, waiting for a child's answer. But Freja sat frozen, hands twisting in her lap, her lips parted then closed. No sound. Astrid's smile faltered. She leaned closer, whispering with her teeth clenched, though the microphone still caught it. "Say it, now." Still silence. That was when I stood. I had been waiting, the small cassette player hidden in my coat pocket. My heart pounded as if I were about to step on stage again. "Perhaps," I said, my voice calm but firm, "the audience would prefer to hear the truth." I pressed play. The room filled with the fragile, trembling sound of Freja's voice, singing the old Icelandic lullaby Hidu að gráta hringana. The recording captured every hesitant note, every breath that turned into courage. The live stream chat froze. Then a flood of shocked comments scrolled across the screen. Astrid's face drained of color. She lunged for the recorder, snapping, "End the stream, cut it off now." The broadcast ended abruptly, leaving her followers with a single lasting image, the sound of a child who was never supposed to be heard. That night, Astrid raged, her voice echoing down the hallway. But I didn't flinch, because I knew the silence had been broken, and once a song escapes into the world, you can't force it back into silence. The Reykjavík courthouse loomed gray against the winter sky, its steps buried in snow. Inside, the air was dry and sharp with the smell of old paper and cold wool coats. I had stood in concert halls, in cathedrals, in opera houses across Europe, but never had I felt my knees tremble as they did when I walked into that courtroom, holding a cassette tape in my coat pocket. The opponent. Astrid arrived first, flanked by her lawyers in tailored suits. She looked radiant, as though this were another stage for her performance. On the table before her, she placed a thick binder labeled Educational Discipline Records. Her eyes met mine with the smug confidence of someone who had always controlled the narrative. Mikkel, my son, sat behind her. He wouldn't meet my gaze. His face was pale, drawn, as though caught between two storms. The advocate. Beside me stood Halla Bjarnadottir, a human rights attorney known for cases involving psychological coercion. She carried no thick binders, no flashy evidence. Just a single file and the recorder. When the judge asked for opening statements, Astrid's lawyer rose and spoke with polished rhetoric. "This case is about discipline, not abuse. Our client merely seeks to raise the child with structure and mindfulness. Any claims to the contrary are sentimental exaggerations." Then Halla stood. Her words were quiet, clipped, and deliberate. "This case is not about discipline. It is about silencing a child's humanity. The evidence. We played the videos first. Astrid scolding Freja on live streams, her voice icy as she commanded the girl to speak only when allowed. Then came the teacher's email, confirming that Freja had once been a bright music student, until she abruptly stopped attending classes. Astrid's lawyer objected, arguing that none of this proved emotional harm, so Halla gestured to me. My hands trembled as I placed the cassette recorder on the table. "Your Honor," she said, "listen not to us but to the child." I pressed play, the voice that broke the silence. From the little speaker came Freja's small, wavering voice. "Grandma says I don't have to be quiet to be good. I can sing, too." It wasn't a song this time, it was her words, bare, unpolished, but alive. The courtroom stilled. Even the judge leaned forward. The sound carried more weight than any argument could. It was not evidence, it was truth. Astrid's face hardened, but her eyes flickered with panic. The audience present, reporters, social workers, strangers, shifted uncomfortably, no longer seeing a coach but a tyrant. The verdict. The judge's ruling came like the drop of a gavel in a symphony's final movement. Temporary custody is granted to the grandmother pending further investigation. The court recognizes the child's right to express herself freely. Mikkel finally looked at me, tears caught in his lashes. He mouthed a word I hadn't heard from him in years. "Sorry." Astrid, meanwhile, sat frozen, her empire of self-help collapsing in silence more suffocating than the one she had imposed on a child. That night, as Freja and I walked out into the snowy evening, she slipped her hand into mine. For the first time, she hummed without hesitation. And I realized the trial wasn't just about custody. It was the world's first audience for her return. The winter storm finally broke the night Freja came home with me. Snow still covered the black volcanic rocks outside, but inside my wooden cottage by the sea, warmth returned for the first time in years. I lit the old iron stove, the same one my husband and I once gathered around. Freja curled up on the rug with a blanket, her eyes wide but calmer now. She no longer looked like a shadow. She looked like a child, my granddaughter, free to breathe. The healing. The court's decision was only temporary, but it gave us a chance. Freja began attending music lessons again, shy at first, then braver with every note. She sang Icelandic lullabies and even simple scales as though they were treasures rediscovered. Mikkel, my son, visited often. He sat at my kitchen table, his hands restless around a coffee mug. "I should have seen it, Mama," he whispered once. I let her control both of us. For the first time in years, I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. He didn't pull away. The fall of Astrid. Meanwhile, Astrid's empire of self-help crumbled overnight. Clips of her silencing Freja spread online, stripped of her rehearsed charm. Sponsors pulled their contracts, and her accounts vanished one by one. The woman who built a brand on voice control was undone by the voice of a 9-year-old girl. The house that heard her sing. On Christmas Eve, Freja asked if she could sing before we ate. I nodded, too choked with emotion to speak. She stood in the center of the room, the glow of the tree lights dancing on her face, and began. "Hiru ath grata hringana." Her voice was steady now, clear and full of warmth. The notes rose and filled every corner of the house. I closed my eyes. For years, this home had been silent except for the wind and the waves. Now it had its music back. And as I watched my granddaughter sing without asking permission, I thought, she doesn't whisper anymore. She doesn't wait for approval. She simply sings, and the snow listens.